Alrighty, we are now on to Scream 3. Now, this was meant to mark the end of a trilogy. This one came 3 years.
The end.
Yes. This was meant to be 3 years after Scream 2 in the year 2000. Um, and the thing with this one is that, from what details I can remember, is that Kevin Williamson had been the writer on the previous two. He, like I said, very much had his stamp on those initial films as much as Wes Craven had. And so he didn't actually return to write this one. I forgot exactly what all I know there was definitely a few things like maybe production, maybe studio pressures and stuff, and ideas and blah blah blah. Just various things. I'm sure, like I said, I can't remember exactly. But Aaron Kruger is actually the prominent writer on this one, which, from what I remember, I don't remember all that they've done. I think this person, they probably wrote like Transformers or something like that, another thing. But basically, considered probably a more mediocre writer as opposed to like Kevin Williamson. So that was one thing, of course. And I think like one of the plot lines for this one would have been another idea that they had but was thrown out because of like the Columbine thing was a situation around that time.
Oh yeah.
And so I think one of the ideas was to, I would say they were planning to bring Stu back possibly as a return killer or something. I think maybe a cult-esque type of thing, or I don't know how exactly, but there were definitely ideas thrown around. And so, like I said, just production issues, whatever. And so we get to this one, this Scream 3. Of course, it's mostly considered to be the weakest overall of the franchise. Um, and for me personally, I definitely see where there are missed opportunities, things that could have been better. It definitely leans into more of a comedic edge as opposed to the previous two, which yeah, they had a certain sense of humor about themselves, but still played fairly straight. This one plays more into that and more into the kind of like the sensationalism of the stories and the Hollywood angle and all this and that. And so I can kind of understand that. Uh, for me, though, as far as like certain important aspects that they should have gotten right, and I'll get into that in a bit, um, I would say it's still, by the end of it, I feel pretty satisfied. Yeah, there are ideas that could have been done differently, but all in all, for me, I don't dislike this one as much as some people. Now, how do you feel just initially, like walking away from Scream 3 in general?
I couldn't get past her hair. Straight out the gate. She appeared on the screen. I'm like, oh my god. Who the hell let her do that?
To be perfectly fair, you are definitely not the only one. That is probably the most prominent criticism anyone could give this film over writing or anything.
It is so
is her hair.
It's distracting. That's why.
I'm not her hairstyle. I don't know what happened.
It got past so many.
Because I know, especially with women in their hair, it's just like that hairdo and stuff. And like I said, Courtney Cox herself looking at it, the hairstyle. I don't know. It wasn't me. I don't know what happened as far as You got me. You got me. Because it was, I mean, she looked good in the last one. But yeah, this one is like, yeah, she really wasn't doing herself any favor. She made herself probably look old. But I mean,
no,
hey, I
it
can't.
Looked like a home, an at-home, chop job on the bangs. I'm like, oh my god, you could have covered it.
I wasn't in charge.
A wig, extensions, whatever, but no.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those little things that you just kind of like. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it happened. So
yeah, I know.
It is what it is.
It was very distracting. I just was like, oh my god, this sucks so bad. And yeah, the whole rest of the movie was an interesting concept, I guess, because the whole movie's that thing. But yeah.
Okay, so we start off with this one. We start off with Cotton Weary returning, and then he's in the car, he's in traffic in Hollywood, and this and that. So he gets a phone call. First of all, he's at first talking to like his agent or manager or whatever, and then he gets a call from like this random woman who recognizes Cotton's voice, and then sure enough, that voice gets switched over, and you hear it's actually Ghostface calling him, and wanting to mess with him because his girlfriend's at home. He's saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm watching her now," this and that. So he rushes off to his home to try to intercept the killer and deal with that situation. and then we lead to Cotton being the opening kill for this film. Now, how did you feel about that opening overall and just where it was going? Had you know?
I mean, you had hoped that he was gonna get there, and that was that was like an off-screen thing for her, though. I mean, you didn't actually see anything happen, so um, yeah. I mean, you at this point you kind of feel bad for him because like, well, I'm actually kind of liking him a little bit. I mean, he's
Yeah, I mean he's living
doing
it.
things with his
He,
life
yeah,
and
I
he's
mean he.
kind of being productive,
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, because
and
of that
yeah,
thing. I mean, yeah, he's got a TV show deal, 100% Cotton, which that's great. I mean, I
that
gotta give him
yeah.
credit for this. Like, okay, props. All right,
Mm-hmm.
makes
I,
perfect
I did
sense.
like that.
Yeah, and so yeah, so we like I said, and so that's an interesting way for him to tie back in. It's like it's kind of a shame to see Cotton get killed, but I mean, I guess it kind of works. And you hear that this ghost face is trying to look for Sydney, and that's when we get into our title card, which is my favorite of these three. Simple, small thing, but just I just like the little effect that they
Mm-hmm.
pull with it. So
As often as they did, trust me.
uh, so going into that, we see that where Sydney's living. She's kind of like out and hiding, out in the middle of nowhere. She's kind of like a crisis call, like she's like a crisis caller, just just taking calls from like random people, like women or whatever, maybe dealing with some issues and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's a little tiny detail where it kind of shows where stuff that she's been through, she's looking to kind of take those dealings and just apply it to help other people, which is a nice little thing. It's a nice little touch for a character, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And it would kind of make sense for her to be in hiding, and after this having happened twice and all that stuff. And
Yeah, like she's a survivor,
yeah,
obviously. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's
yeah.
really cool.
And then so, and also one thing about this film is that it's being considered a criticism is that some would say that Sydney's not as prominent in this film, which is technically true because around this time, like during the production of this, she was on that show of hers, um, Party of Five, I think it was. So that was a show that she was on, so she kind of had limited time to actually shoot on this film. I personally don't really notice it as much as some other people. Like I feel like the way that they utilize her throughout the film, she feels prominent enough, and especially with her character being in hiding and all that. Did you think that at all? Did you feel like she was a little less prominent at all? Did it, or
It kind of.
I'm just curious to know what you thought. I'm just.
Well, I'm trying to think on it for a minute.
I mean, it's fine if you can't remember. I'm just because I know it's been a little bit since we watched it, but like I said, I just felt like it's like yeah, I know she's like the main character, but I felt like the way like her screen time, the way that they used it, I never felt like she was almost like missing from the film, like some people try to put it. That's just me though. I don't know. Because it is a little bit more focused on Gail and Dewey because
Mm-hmm.
they're in the Hollywood setting where it's kind of starting to take place because, of course, like I said, Sydney's in hiding, which makes sense as far as general the storytelling and all this. And so with the news of Cotton having been killed and everything, and then once we meet back up with Gail, which she's having her little lecture thing, like just speaking and all that stuff to like this, I guess some dorm room of people, whoever. And so that's when we get what's his name, uh, McDreamy, as they call him.
Oh yeah,
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 I know his name, but now I'm just
yeah.
starting to
No,
blank
I
on
know.
it. Yeah, Patrick Dempsey.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Thank you.
comes in as the cop and it goes to talk to
Mm-hmm.
Gil to know the fire of this and
Well,
then
yeah,
so that's
that whole thing that transpires and going to that mansion, and
yeah,
that was
yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, and then like I said, that's when we start to like culminate, like bring all these characters back, and then this is when we start to see that they're filming Stab 3, which by this point, yeah, they already had another sequel, and then this is the third sequel, and this being Scream 3 and Stab. Okay, I guess it makes sense. And so that Dewey is actually like a what's the term? just kind of giving his insight onto the film, and during the events and stuff. And this is what we see the whole set's this like literal recreation of Stu's house from the original film and all that. So like, so this is where the film is definitely getting meta on top of meta and all this and that, and definitely playing up the Hollywood side of things, which some would say that's a flaw. For me, it's like, well, I mean, it kind of makes sense to some degree. I mean, how did you feel about that? Like the whole Hollywood sets and the whole actors, and then, and
Well, because I mean, they obviously, yeah, it just works because that's what they were doing. That's the whole haha thing about it.
mm-hmm.
They made a movie about the happenings of the first film, and then just duh, I don't know. I mean, it'd be weird if they didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, as some would say, and I would actually say, though, as far as the side characters, they're a bit more two dimensional compared to the previous films. I would say that is a fair criticism. They're just kind of.
Like the actors.
Yeah,
in
yeah, the
movie.
actors. It's
Yeah,
like.
they were just.
Yeah, they're just kind of, kind of generic brand. But even for what they were, it's like they were still fun characters. But yeah, they could have been better overall.
And that's not on the people that played
No,
these characters.
no, not at all. I mean, like I said, they were.
se.
No, they were fine because you had like Jenny McCarthy, you had Emily Mortimer, and what's Dion Richmond, who I think was pretty funny.
Oh, that was pretty funny. But
Like that
at the house scene later on.
Yeah, like, oh, you party. Motherfucker.
Yeah,
I will say that personally to me is a very funny line. Ghostface is chasing him. He's like, "Oh, you motherfucker."
Yes.
The way he
I
delivered
so
that, and
hard
just in that moment, I'm like, okay, that is actually one of the funniest lines in the entire series, if you ask me personally. Like, you can say what you will about this film, but that is the funniest line. The way he delivered that shit, I'm not gonna lie. And so, like, say, yeah, so they serve their purpose and all that stuff. So, but once you start to pick up, like, what's going on with this film, you realize that this ghost face can actually alter their voice. Now, without going in detail of, like, who it was and all this, how did you feel about that element being added to it? Did you like that at all?
Like
the voice changer, the where they can manipulate literally anyone else's voice. Was that too much for you, or did you think that was okay?
Well, I think that works because then it's like, well, who the hell could the killer be? You know what I mean? Because it could literally be anyone with this thing that they had.
Yeah. See, the thing is that especially for 2000, so this is 20 years ago. I can understand some people, especially like then, just thinking like, okay, that technology is probably a bit too much of a stretch, especially for it to so perfectly manipulate other people's voices. But for me personally, suspension of disbelief, and this being the third film, is supposed to be, the end of a trilogy. And for me, honestly, I don't think about that heavily. I'm like, technically, various forms of technology, especially nowadays, are there. And for what it is, just to add that extra layer of a tool for the killer, and just to kind of add that extra element of tension, not knowing who can truly be, I'm fine with it, honestly, for them to be able to just manipulate everyone else's voice, because, like I said, just adds that extra layer of mystery into, when they could be talking to whoever and just manipulating everyone else. Like I said, for what it was, I'm fine. I understand how, like I said, you could look at it as being like, that's just too much. But for me, again, for the third film, it's
not
fine.
A far stretch. If you're technologically minded, you could probably do something with a voice changer thing, because obviously they exist. You make it deeper, like, and you just tweak it here or there, change a wire there, and then it just makes different voices. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, I get both sides, but for me, like, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, it's fine. I don't let it bother me that much. There are worse things I could complain about, honest, but it's just like
her hair.
Yeah, yeah. For what it is,
Sorry,
yeah.
I can't.
Again, you're not the only one. Trust me. I've seen the video. I've seen the proof that that's probably the number one criticism. I'm like, what the hell did you do? And like I said, it was nice in the second one. She looked good, but this one just did not. She didn't do herself any favors. But it is what I can't help it. It wasn't me. I'm not a hairdresser. And so, yeah, okay. So going back all into it, a lot of the actors and stuff start getting axed off. One of the bigger, like Jenny McCarthy, I think is the first one to get axed off and everything.
She was like the assistant, right?
No, she was the one actress in it. No,
The,
no, Jenny McCarthy, the blonde one.
yeah.
Yeah, no. She was an actress in the movie. I think.
Well, yeah, and I thought she was kind of like, well, because she was in the guy's office, right, and breaks the statue.
Well, I mean, she had gotten a call from
Yeah.
Roman saying that go to the
Yeah.
office to go
Okay.
over the script, is what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another change? What? Yeah. Uh-huh.
hmm And
I
so,
remember.
so kind of going into it, and then later, kind of like middle of the film kill, is the giant house scene where they're all there. And also, I forgot to mention, like, surprisingly, I forgot, but Parker Posey, who's playing Gail Weathers in this film. A lot of people would say that she's actually kind of like the standout just because of what she really brings to that to that character, and just the way that she is just kind of, how did you feel about her in particular? Did you like her, or did you feel annoyed by her? I'm kind of curious.
I mean, I think she was good at what she did. I don't know that she was like a super favorite of mine. I mean, I guess she was kind of like a bitch, but I mean, that's the character.
Yeah.
So
Especially, like I said, when you compare to everyone else who is two-dimensional, she is definitely very like three-dimensional. So she definitely adds a certain flavor to this film, and you even have the one scene when they begin investigating, and you have that scene with Carrie Fisher. She's
good.
Carrie Fisher, but she's not playing Carrie Fisher. She's playing an actress that looks like Carrie Fisher, and so it's just like that definitely is a bit of a mind fuck. But hey, it's like, oh, who gets Princess Leia? The one who sleeps with George Lucas, of course.
I thought that was pretty funny.
So I guess that answers so many questions. Anyway, never mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so scenes like that, again, for me, it's fine. Like I said, are they probably doing a bit too much? Probably, but for what it is, they're fun moments. And even the Jay and Silent Bob cameo.
That was awesome.
And I think what's funny there, because around the same time Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which came out a year later, you remember in that movie at the end where they had the scene with Wes Craven, he's actually filming a Scream movie, but the monkey was underneath.
Yeah.
And so those were kind of like, crossing over, like little thing that they had going around that time, which is fun when you watch those films like back to back. And it's just like, oh, hey, those are fun little moments there. And it's like, oh, hey, what is it? Like Connie Chung, that one reporter that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she just flips them off, and
that was funny.
Yeah. And so so we get to this next big kill moment where the whole house goes up in flames. Now, how did you feel about this whole sequence overall? And did that work for you? Because I mean, the setup of it and the elaborate nature of it is, it's a bit up there as far as like the lights going out, but the fax machine, they're sending the fax, and then you have the gas, and then you have the lighter. It's that is very much an elaborate, like, point by point set that you would have to nail. And like, again, suspension of disbelief is fine. It's fun. Could have been executed a little bit better, I guess, maybe, but it is what it is. How did you feel about that particular sequence?
I thought it was. No, I thought it was fun, and well.
I mean, because you got to up the ante.
I guess?
What?
Intriguing, maybe.
And like I said, I mean, it was a way for them to
on?
kind of like up the ante, of course, going bigger on certain things. And like I said, the setup of it is pretty elaborate for the moment to have been executed perfectly. But like, as far as like the faxing and sending the scenes and then telling them what's happening, I'm like, that's actually kind of fun and clever. So I will give them that and everything. So and so moving on to one particular moment I want to talk about. Once Sydney comes back in, and then that's when they meet up with Randy's sister. And that's when we actually get what I feel is probably the most probably clever scene overall in the movie, and at least a good way to bring back the Randy character, is for him to leave this video, which he had filmed during the events of Scream 2, to explain the rules of like, okay, well, if this is what's happening now, is this another sequel or is this a trilogy? And how he kind of goes into it again, playing up the ideas and the facts that, if you find yourself dealing with all this, exposition and, this unknown backstory and this and that, and, this is the third chapter in the trilogy, so any shit can go down at this point. How did you feel about that sequence?
Well, yay, because I saw Randy, but I don't know. It just works. I guess I'm in in the same boat as everyone else with liking him and whatnot. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of bittersweet because it's like, yeah, it does make you miss him, but at the same time, as far as having killed him in the previous one and finding a way to utilize them for this third film, I think it's a great scene. One of my favorite scenes, definitely in the whole movie, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
The simulated back and forth because he like says
Yeah,
certain things
he,
to us or well to them.
it's like, yeah, like how I lost my virginity to Karen Kolchak in the porno section. He's just like, Karen Kolchak. He's like, yes, Karen Kolchak. Shut up. And so yeah, it
Yeah,
was a fun like little like
yeah.
back and forth that they have. But again, that just goes to show how great the Randy character is because he can like monologue like any talk about anything movie related, and just like the rest of us, just like it's just so fun watching him and just being Randy. It's
Well, a he's a good comedian to begin with.
yeah, no,
I mean,
Jamie
he's not
Kennedy.
like in the top tier, the greats
No,
of the
but I mean for
greats,
this
but
time, especially like
oh
I said,
yeah.
Jamie Kennedy, because I took you through. I made her watch all reruns of like Jamie Kennedy Experiment. Like the guy is great. He really is. He actually does have a YouTube channel now. I could probably show you some videos sometimes, but I mean he really is. He's really
Mm-hmm.
fairly underrated to a certain degree. Like I said, I know during that period he was pretty prominent with his show and everything and like that coming off the screen, but he is still fairly underrated as far as what he can actually bring to certain things because he is good. And like I said, I just think that's a really, really great scene overall. And
Mm-hmm.
so this will also go into another sequence where Sydney, she goes onto the set, and so she's kind of like reliving those moments like in her head basically of the first film. And then so how'd you feel about that as far as like being able to see that set piece and kind of like taking her through it, and she starts getting attacked, and of course the whole element of bringing her mother in, which earlier we did see her in like a dream sequence, which may be a bit too much, but as far as like a creepiness factor, that's one of the
Yeah,
creepiest images of the whole series, to
yeah.
be honest with you. The way that they made up the mom, she's all pale and shit, looking out the window. It's like that's actually pretty fucking creepy. I will give them that. So how'd you feel about that sequence?
I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it made me think about like if that had happened to Laurie Strode and then that sort of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
then Michael Myers and doing that, that would that's pretty cool. And then how they did the flashback sequence in Halloween Kills. So I mean that
Yeah.
it was pretty cool. It was like a flashback, but not really.
Yeah, no, I think this is the cool sequence, especially once they start going through the house and you start seeing like the fallings and trappings of it being a set. Like when they go up to the second floor, they open the door, almost falls out, and then she pulls them down and drops them on the bed and stuff like that. And so I do think it plays for a really fun little sequence there. Uh, and so to go forward a little bit more before we get to the end, also, Lance Henriksen is a character in this. He's like the producer and everything, and we find out that because also throughout the film, of course, we start getting more backstory on Sid's mom, and to find out that she was actually took some time to try to be an actress, and she went out to Hollywood and doing all this and that, and so some things happened to her out there, and Milton plays a part in that. It's just like what you even hear, like yeah, even till this day, of course, it's just like Hollywood parties, people getting taken advantage of, and this and that. So that definitely played a factor into the events that would come into the original Scream film. Now, how'd you
Mm-hmm.
feel about like that whole backstory and kind of culmination and that whole idea for Sydney's mom? Did you like that at all? Did it work or not?
Well, I think it worked. I mean, obviously it did its job, helped explain why certain things would have happened because
Mm-hmm.
all along with these pictures and stuff they're like showing up, it's like what the frick is going on, and then well obviously that reveal. So I think it works.
Yeah, I mean, I like the backstory. I think it fits in
Mm-hmm.
relatively well, and so you get that one, like that final confrontation moment with Milton, the producer, and him explaining himself and all of that, and it's a fun scene in there with Lance Henriksen again. He's just like, I was like, oh, I was known for my parties, and it's just like different times how it was, and you wanted to play the game, that's how it is, and it's this and that. And so, like, it just kind of plays into that shady side of Hollywood and how all that can be at times. And like I said, in recent years, especially, we see that now. It's just like, oh boy. It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that definitely plays in certain realities there. And so, going into the finale, everyone's at Milton's mansion. You know, everyone's just all hanging out and stuff. And so, of course, eventually, once the attacks start to occur, oh, you motherfucker. um, and so Sydney gets a call to go over to the mansion for the final confrontation. Now, as far as like just the general, like, I guess you can call it kind of like a Scooby Doo sequence with everyone going through this mansion and shit's going down. How did you feel about that whole general sequence as far as the killings that were happening and just the whole setting of the mansion and all that?
I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, that place was huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, it worked for me. It was kind of like a Clue-esque sort of thing.
Yeah,
with the,
yeah,
with the
kind of,
huge
kind of like,
mansion.
yeah, especially with the whole
Um,
killer identity thing still in effect. It's just like, yeah, it is
mhm.
kind of Clue-esque. That could actually be an interesting idea. Maybe find a way to combine Clue and Scream in a certain way like that, and maybe do some. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh, I'm sure there's a game board out there that would have done that exact thing. So,
mm, yeah.
just gotta find it.
And so, leading to the biggest moment of the film, for the most part, uh, Sydney gets chased into that secret like theater screening room that was hidden inside the mansion. And so, of course, the final confrontation with Ghostface, he's monologuing, stating that, like, oh yeah, I searched for a mother too, an actress named Rena Reynolds, which was, you know, her stage name. I tried to find her all this time. I finally found her. She slammed the door in my face. And then you get the reveal that it was Rowan Bridger, the director of this film, not very prominent in the film itself, but you get to this reveal, and so that's the whole backstory. Is that he is basically Sydney's stepbrother, and he was the one who basically orchestrated the events of the original film, and that set into motion all of this. And so, first off, as far as like the Roman character throughout the film leading up to that, how did you feel about him? Did you feel like he left any impact on you up until that point?
Well, I mean, he just wanted to make a movie, and then things started to go down. It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
then I can make my movie.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like, I don't know. It was okay, I
All right.
suppose.
All right. So the
I didn't
reveal.
hate him or nothing.
Yeah. All right. So the reveal itself, did that work for you at all? I'm very curious to know about this one in particular.
It was weird, I suppose. Um, I mean, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It was just like, okay, well, it happened. You know, what are you gonna do about it? It's not like you can say something and change the movie. So,
Well, I mean, you still get your general opinion as if you think it was a good narrative choice or not, or I
well,
mean,
I mean, who else was it gonna be? You know, who else was the killer gonna be? Because it could literally be anyone.
yeah, it could be, but okay. Now here's my take on it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, overall, like I said, as I said before, Scream 3 is considered to be a weaker film. Some people probably just say it's like just terrible. I don't think it's terrible. Like maybe, like I said, yeah, it's not as sharp as the first two, the first one especially,
It's
but it's not like I said, it it definitely misses Kevin Williamson's writing.
yeah. I guess
And like I
that's what
said,
it
and
is.
it
Yeah.
is a bit more like I said with the it's like I said with the general side characters being more two dimensional. Like I said, so a lot of the surrounding elements aren't as well done. But I feel like the core of the film itself, like the important aspects, like I said, the reveal, it mostly hinges on the reveal and whether or not that makes sense. For me personally, I actually really like Roman Bridger as the killer, this time just being a singular killer, not two,
Mm-hmm.
and just basically revealing that he's the grand master planner of all of this. Because if not for him, none of this would really be the case. I can understand though his character not being very prominent enough. I do think he's fun in the film, but I feel like as far as revealing this character being the killer and him being like, the basically the true mastermind of it all, they probably should have made his character a little bit more prominent and given him a little bit more to do throughout. That would be my one complaint. But once he's revealed, once Scott Foley goes into his monologue and starts playing into that, he sells me on it completely.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly 100% enjoy him once he is revealed. And a lot of times it's like how you leave them, and that's where it leaves me. I love the reveal of this. I think the backstory, it plays very well into it. And some would complain that, oh, it just takes away from the original and Billy and Stu's motivations. But not really, because he just kind of planted the seed for their eventual doings, and they were still the ones that carried out the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And that's when, again, you go back and you realize that the second one, that was just a residual effect of the first movie, of course, because Roman planted that seed. He set forth those events, which set forth the next events, which, of course, this brings it all back around. Like I said, as far as the whole overall arc, it plays very well to me, and that's what I like about it. Like I said, there are definitely a lot of missed opportunities in this film. It's not a great package as a whole, but once you give me like that one important element that needs to be done right, to me, it works, honestly. Yeah. And just the scene, the way it plays out, I just like the scene once he starts like ramping up. He starts like just throwing all of his thoughts out there, and then Sydney's just starting to fire him back. It's like, you spineless bastard. And it's just like I've heard this shit before. It's just such a fed up Sydney, and I love it too because since they're revealed to be siblings, they almost immediately start feeling like brother and sister once the shit starts hitting the fan. Like, she's just like, I've heard this shit before. It's just like, you know why you kill people, Roman, do you? It's because you choose to. There is no one else to blame. Why don't you take some fucking responsibility? Fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah,
I just love the way that plays out. And also, too, it just cements the fact how badass Sydney is, because you want to talk about badass female character. I mean, one moment she takes a straight boot to the face. Like, you see the boots that they wear. Straight boot to the face, and she takes that shit like a champ. And they're just fisticuffs. I just love the whole confrontation all throughout. From the monologue to the fight itself. It's just fun to me. It just works. I just have a blast when I watch it every time. So, I mean, would you agree? Or?
Oh, yeah. For sure. I mean, I would think she would have been a little more busted up with a boot to the face like that, but, you know, it's whatever.
No, I mean, like I said, again, just things could have been better overall, but once you get to this moment, which is the most important, it 100% works for me. I just have fun with it every single time. Like, I just like Scott Foley once he's revealed as the killer. I'm like, you know what? I like Roman. I really do. I like that character. I like his dealings. It works for me.
You know what just popped in my head is if they did that whole sequence to make sure they got it right, and then everything else is just kind of bleh, and that's why it sucks so much.
I mean, it seems like that way. I mean, like, to some people, even 50-50 on Roman, but I'm like, I like the character, because again, if it was a lesser actor and he didn't sell it, like, as far as just the monologuing, that probably definitely would have taken it down a peg or two. Mm-hmm. But honestly, Scott Foley, like I said, once he just goes with it, he's just rolling with it, and I just have fun with it. Like I said, and just the back and forth between the two of them, it's just so much fun. I just really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And as a fun fact, in the original film, once Sydney came out the closet, because you remember when she was dressed up as Ghostface, she jumped out the closet, she had the umbrella, and she poked Billy in the chest with it. Mm-hmm. There was that one moment where he screams and like falls down. That was because, well, she actually did hit him. Like, she had missed the padding that they had given him, and so that had like really like hurt him bad on that moment. And in this film too, once she comes out from behind the bar and like stabs Roman, those are actual legitimate screams as well from Scott Foley, because again, she missed some sort of padding and actually hit him, and it hurt him like a motherfucker. So that's twice that she did that, which is pretty funny to me. But
well, yeah, it just makes it better.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's a
stunt work.
Yeah,
trying to work with the fight coordinator. coordinator, know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, learning the behind the scenes of some of the other movies. That's like, yeah, okay, I can see that.
All right, so all that wraps up. He gets he gets laid out for a bit. But of course, he's not superhuman. He has a bulletproof vest and everything like that. And even a moment where they play in her kind of being dead. She gets shot. I like the music when it comes in and everything. It's like lose something, found something, and like just like little moments that play into the end that just I really enjoy. But of course, he winds up coming in. He's getting shot to death by Dewey and everything, just in the chest. And she's like, "Head, Dewey, head!" And shoots him in the head. Goes flying back, and he's all dead now. And so, nice happy ending towards the end. Dewey proposes to Gale. And nice little shot at the end, which kind of helps show you the fact that Sydney's okay with kind of leaving the door open and just kind of not having to live with that sense of fear, basically. Is a way to kind of show you that. Because it's the end of a trilogy, it's the evil is done with, this and that, all well and good, film's over. So, overall, final thoughts.
I would probably do. Yeah, I don't think I liked it nearly as much as the others for sure, but it was serviceable. So I'd probably do like a 3. You know,
I would
and
probably
it's got those couple of moments like the the reveal sequence and the fight, and then the funny line in the mansion, and maybe 1 or 2 things earlier in the movie. Or like Randy, but otherwise it was just like waiting to get to the next bit. Like, what's gonna happen? Can we move it along? So
fair enough. Yeah, I would say it's a good solid 3 as well. I wouldn't put anything lower than that. Some people would. Some people would just say it's. I'm like, yeah, like I said,
I've seen worse movies.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, like half the Friday 13th sequels. I love that franchise to death, but half those sequels, come on now. I've seen a hell of a lot worse than this. We've seen Freddy's Dead. We've seen Halloween 5 and
Trick or Treat, motherfucker.
Resurrection. I mean, dude. I mean,
that one secretly has a little place in my heart. I want to watch it once in a while.
Yeah, that's like a so bad it's good for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, this one, it's like, again, like I see the criticisms as well. Like I said, it's not as sharp as the first 2, but like I said, as far as the important elements of getting it right, as far as like the killer motivations, where it leaves you, it sticks to landing for me personally, and just that's the most important thing. And so, like I said, and it's still, like I said, fun overall. I can easily watch it just like any of the other ones and just have a good time. And like I said, what it needs to get right, it gets right for me. So I don't think it's terrible. It's not the best one. No. But I do enjoy, like I said, the killer and everything and the reveal and just where it leaves you. So that's what I have to say about it. Mm-hmm. All right. So with that said, there is only one last Scream film until Scream, that being Scream 4. This is going to be 11 years after the fact. In 2011 is when this was released, which was actually released on 4/14, if I recall correctly. So yeah. So we will be dealing with that one and see where that one actually takes us with the franchise. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.